So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. This is called the psychology of persuasion, the science of persuading both uncharted and charted paths. And when you think about this, whenever we're trying to convince somebody of something, it's a delicate dance of persuasion and presentation. And what I'm hoping is that at the end of this webinar that you'll not only understand how the process works, but how we use it every single day in our professional world and in our personal interactions. And in order to convince somebody of something, two distinct scenarios will arise, and they're different, okay, but they're also similar. One of them is convincing somebody to do something they've never done before, and the other is convincing somebody to do something that they may have already experienced. And there's a series of steps that people follow, and right now you're probably following them unconsciously when you're trying to make a compelling offer to someone. But the steps are the same, and we're going to go through these steps because I want to bring those steps from back here to right up here, where you can consciously persuade people to do pretty much whatever you want if you're using the right combinations. And I am going to tell you a couple things. Number one, you cannot force anybody to do anything without severe consequences. These processes work really well, but you really need to be ethical about how you apply them. We're going to go ahead and jump in, and the first part that we're going to be doing is how does a person become convinced of something? And one of the easiest ways to find that out is you just ask them a question. You say, how do you know something's good? And I realize that that's a general question, and this cannot be a general question. It needs to be related to the topic or the context that you're engaged in. So if you're going to the movies, for example, you might say, how do you know a movie is good? Or if you're going to dinner, how do you know when a meal is good? And what's going to happen is the person is going to respond in whatever preferred channel that they use. For example, it might be something they see. It might be something that they hear. Or if it's something that they feel, that comes in four options. One of them is an emotion, okay? It could be reading or research or peer review or social commentary or social agreement. The third one is tactile, that maybe they have to put their hands on it and touch it. If you're talking about dinner, maybe they have to taste it before they know it's good. And then the fourth thing in kinesthetics is doing, where they're doing active experimentation. So anyway, the person is going to answer, there's also olfactory, smell, and gustatorial taste, and think about dinner. But one of the things that you could do for practice, and you could do this in a group or you could do this with friends, is ask a person, how do they know X is good? And you listen to their words and you repeat them back to them in the exact order. So if somebody said, how do you know a meal is good? And I'm just making something up, it's like, okay, I prefer a great ambiance. I like going to places where they have cloth napkins and people bring me stuff and they take it away and they do the dishes and it's reasonably priced, but the food has to be high quality. So the way that you would do that is a person would say, okay, so you want to go to a place that has good ambiance, they have cloth napkins, they bring you the food, they take it away, and the food has to be high quality, right? And I'm going to go, yeah. But if they screwed up the order or if they left something out, I go, no, that's not it. And they might ask me to repeat it again until they get the right order. The other thing or the second part of any convincer strategy. Once you have their preferred channel, the second part of the convincer strategy is time. And time breaks into 4 different categories as well. And those categories are, one of them is automatic. So what a person sees, hears, feels, etc., in the right order, one time, they immediately go to convince. So if they go to and I'm going to just keep using a restaurant for a minute. They go to the restaurant, they take one bite of their food, and they go, oh, this place is incredible. And for the rest of their lives, they are automatically convinced that no matter what, that when they go to that restaurant, that they're going to get a great meal. The second thing, or the second type of time, is called a number of times. So you could take your friend to the restaurant. We're going to stay with that. And I don't care what kind of meal you've had. It could be the best thing that they've ever had. But if they have a number of times convincer strategy, they're going to have to go 2 or more times in order to be convinced. So if they go to this restaurant and they have 2 great meals or 3 great meals, then they're convinced. The third type of time is called a period of time. So you could take somebody to the same restaurant, 4 times in one day, but that won't work. They need a period of time. So you take them to the restaurant, and then you wait a week or you wait a month, and then you go back and they have a great meal. And now they're convinced that over a period of time versus just, hearing or saying or seeing or doing 20 times in a row, it is not going to do it. It could be this period of time could be in hours, or it could be in days, or it could be weeks, depending on the person's strategy. And then the fourth one, my personal favorite, is called consistent convincer strategy. And this person is never convinced of something is good. They have to be resold. They have to be reconvinced every single time, or always, that something is good, or something is true, or something is factual. So putting this all together, you're going to need what the person uses, whether it's visual or auditory or kinesthetic, as their convincer. And then you need to know, is it automatic? Is it a number of times? Is it a period of time? Or is it never? So let's do an example here real fast. Person A. Person A is going to ask person B, how do you know X is good? And in this case, we're going to use a business deal because I've kind of worn out the dinner thing. And you say, well, how do you know that a business deal is good? And person B is going to answer, and I just made something up. When I look at the contract, did you hear that? When they look at the contract, it makes sense. That's a kinesthetic response. I will know, which is also a kinesthetic response, that it's a good deal. So I'll repeat that again. Person A asks person B, how do I know when a business deal is good? And person B says, I'll look at the contract, it will make sense, and I will know it's a good deal. So what you would do is you repeat it back. So when you look at that contract and read it, and it makes sense to you, you'll know it's a good deal, right? And if person B says yes, you've repeated it in the correct order. If they say no, ask them to do it again. And it's a super, super important to get their order intact. And the next thing that you're going to want to know is time. We've talked about this. So now you have their channel. They're going to look at it. They're going to know it's good. It's going to make sense to them, and they're just going to know it's a good deal, which is great. The next thing that you need to know is how many times are they going to have to look at that contract? And so you ask them, It's like, how many times do you need to read this contract and where it makes sense and it's a good deal? And they're a couple of times. So you say, well, okay, a couple of times. Is that 2 or 3? And they're going to answer, whether it's 2 or 3. So you go, okay, great. So I have this contract for you to look at. And I want you to look at this at least 3 times. And by the time you're finished, it's going to make sense. And you're going to know it's a good deal for the both of us. So you're ready to read that contract, or do you have any additional questions? And if you've done this in the right order, they're going to say yes. And in business or going to dinner, we want yeses. So you want to make it easy for them to say yes. And I want you to know that this is not a ninja trick that you can use anywhere, anytime, with anybody. Knowing somebody's convincer strategy is a huge ethical responsibility, okay? Because you can use this information to convince that person in this context of just about anything. So my polite request is that you only sell or you only promise what you can deliver. The next step of this process is you may be asking yourself, okay, well, I understand this on an individual level. Does this work for groups? Oh, yes, it does. And you will see people doing this all the time. Now, in our current day and age, where we do a lot more stuff on video, we're doing fewer and fewer live events, but this process works in a large group. It will work in person. It will work on a webinar. It will work on the telephone. And for a large group, I think it's important to point out that we have all of these cool tools that are available to us. We have the internet, we have electronic tools, we have outlines, we have video, we have live whiteboards, we have breakout sessions, we can do Q&A before, during, and after the presentation, so that whatever the person's convincer strategy is can be fulfilled. Now, one of the things that you want to think about when you're doing a group presentation is you want to include visual demonstration. So if I was showing you how to, I don't know, we'll pick something crazy, cut down a tree. The easiest way for me to show you how to cut down a tree would be to either do a series of photographs or do a video, so that you could see this is how a person cuts down the tree. First, you cut out the wedge, then you cut the tree, you make sure that everything's out of the way, and depending on the environment, you might want to put guy wires on it, or you may want to cut it into pieces. But all of those components are going to be in the video, and the human brain processes pictures, visuals, 60,000 times faster than a text. So it's going to be a great way for you to do your visual demonstration. The next thing that you might want to consider would be visual presentation. And this is going to be infographics, visual aids, a pie chart, or something like that, so that your information that you're given to them is more digestible. When I'm doing complex trainings and stuff, I love to use PowerPoint, because I'll set up my PowerPoint and then I just click on the space bar to every single step that I'm moving, and using these compelling visual aids really adds to interest, so people don't drift off or go look at their phone or whatever. The next one is going to be auditory presentation. And there are a lot of people, I see somebody on this call who absolutely is the guy. And this particular person uses radio in order to do his presentations for his particular company and product. And single channel, which would be like radio, it still works very, very effectively in modulating your voice using strategic pauses and asking rhetorical questions like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Okay. And so you're doing things where they're filling in the blanks, they're answering yes inside of their head. And it's going to help you with your convincing of your audience. The next step or the next tool that you could use would be auditory explanation. And I used that just a moment ago. I paused to see if anybody had any questions or if they wanted some clarity on a specific issue that they had a question about. And you need to make sure that when you're doing your presentation or you're doing your explanation to that you take the time to listen to the question, pause, and give them a thoughtful answer. You don't just go, yep, okay, move on. But so what you want to do is you want to make that person feel that they are the most important person in the room. And when you speak to an audience, what I like to do is I like to imagine that I am talking to one single person. There could be 5,000. It wouldn't matter if it was 50,000. I'm going to speak as if I am speaking to a single person, and I want them to get exactly what I'm talking about. All right. The next thing that you might want to consider is depending on what it is that you're selling or whatever it is that you're offering to the people is kinesthetic. Is there something that they can do, something that they can put their hands on? Do you have an in-class homework assignment, write down 10 things that make you happy or whatever it is? Because getting people to interact physically rather than just sitting back and listening to your presentation is going to be far more valuable to them and also to your presentation. And then ultimately you're convincing them to purchase your product or ask for more information or even join your email list. Now we're going to, we're going to move to that next step, the importance of the number of times. One of the things that used to drive me absolutely crazy when I was going to Toastmasters was that they did the same thing that we did in elementary school. The teacher or the presenter would tell you what they're going to tell you. Then they would tell you. And then at the end of it, they would tell you what they told you. And I would just go, but I never understood until later the importance of a number of times it takes for the average person to take in information. For this might be the most interesting thing that you've heard all morning, but tomorrow 80% of this is going to be gone. So I'm going to be asking you, please, take the time to watch this more than once, and it will help stack the information. Additionally, little side information, I am going to be offering you guys a PDF, and in that PDF also will be this video. So you will be able to have information to read. So visual, okay, and then you've got the auditory and visual in the video itself that you're going to be, so that you can, regardless of your learning style, you're going to be able to get this information and you can refer back to it to utilize it. The other thing that you might want to consider, which is another part of this, is the role of experts. And we talked about convincer strategy where somebody has a number of times before they're convinced of something. They also may need multiple sources in order for them to understand or to get that what you're telling them is valid. I highly recommend that when you're doing something, that you include a bibliography. I highly recommend if you can cite other experts that agree with your opinion, give those resources to people who need that information. You just cannot underestimate the power of leveraging expert testimonies. That's why everybody has testimonials on their website or whatever, going, this guy is awesome. Don't believe him, believe me. All right. And then the last thing, again, is the influence of a period of time. So, you've got people that need multiple examples, but there are people, they'll watch the video or they'll read the PDF, and then they'll set it down. They might think about it, or they might go do something else. But and they come back to it and read it again, and like, this is how we really get people convinced of what we're doing. So again, we're going to do repetition. So the recap for the groups is, when it comes to group education, sales, and prospecting, the more you use visual and auditory and kinesthetic tools, the more people are going to connect with one or more of those channels. Value of time, automatic, period of time, number of times, or consistency. This means that some people will buy right away. Some people will need multiple repetitions or several presentations. Some of them are going to need a period of time. And there's also those people who, no matter what, they are never going to believe you. So, I've been doing this for a little while. And what's interesting is, when you put a product out there on the market, and I know there's a couple of people that on this call that do that. When you put something out, boom, you'll get 1 or 2 sales. Okay. Those are the automatic people. They look at it, they want it, they buy it, they whatever. And have you ever seen websites and they have a countdown timer? And it's counting down, and you can have this, if you order in 3 minutes or 5 hours or whatever it is. And a lot of people on the web, they do that sort of thing specifically for 2 reasons. Number one, they want to do a compelling offer. And this isn't the webinar for this, but you also have a strategy called move towards and move away. And the people that move towards pleasure are going to buy your stuff right away. If it makes sense to them, if they understand, they're going to get it right away. And then there's that other group that they move away from consequences. So they're going to think about it. They're going to put it off. They like options. And when they commit to something, it reduces their options. So putting something compelling like a countdown timer, or sending them a message and go, hey, this product, it's available now, but it's going off the market now, and it's going to go away forever, which isn't true, but it stimulates and motivates people to make that decision. So I want to thank you guys for being on here, but I want to open this up for questions, because I see some people that you guys do sales online, you do sell products, or you do sell services and stuff, and I just kind of want to talk about this and see if there's any questions. So if you guys want to, you can unmute, and if you really want to, you can take yourself off, turn your cameras on, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.